So many years ago in a fictional land called Eternia, a prince of ambiguous sexuality named Adam raised his sword on high and said,
"By the power of Grayskull!"
And so that's just what I did. I bought the power of Grayskull. And between you and me, I was expecting more. Salutations, fellow readers, writers, and killers of time on YouTube. My name is Martha Jones, and I am here in my most embarrassing nostalgia apparel because, as someone who has the bittersweet privilege of being a millennial, until fairly recently, if someone had asked me about the generations before me and after me, and how we all kind of compared with each other, I might have told you that both of those generations seem a lot more together than my peers and I, but I'm not sure I would have been able to tell you why. And now that I think I know some of why, as something of a public service message to the generations that come after me, I would like to use the androgynous sounds of my voice to share a few words with you about Millennials and how mass media messed us up. And while this channel is built on books, and books are always the reason for the treason by which I can rat out my peers, I shall eventually get round to books, but I ain't gonna start off with them, because most of the problems I aim to discuss didn't necessarily start in books, not even this one or this one. And the thing that got me thinking about this was a friend who is about a dozen years younger than me has occasionally grieved that because of movies like Toy Story and Brave Little Toaster, the generation coming up directly behind mine has rather self-mockingly dubbed itself a generation of nostalgia-worshipping hoarders. And when I heard this, I almost agreed with that for millennials, but that wasn't quite right. And while I'd be hard-pressed to think of a generation that was not in some way messed up by the media it consumed, the problem with millennials decidedly did not start with Gen X, or the baby boomers, or the greatest generation, but at least since the time of the Victorians. Children were not necessarily loved or reveled in because their parents thought they were awesome, as much as the fact that they were less experienced adults. So they addressed them as small adults, they dressed them as small adults, and more or less groomed them for the day that they would be productive, exploitable members of society. Much later in the Regan administration, a bunch of enterprising corporate types attempted to expedite the exploitation process and began to show these future adults elaborate commercials for their toy lines, cleverly disguised as adventure cartoons. And because these corporate types were all about their heterosexual male power fantasies, what could be more natural than to share these with children? So for a solid decade, the message was clear, and the word of the day was power. By the time the 90s rolled around, power was still a central theme, but for one reason or another, environmentalism became super trendy, and the message changed slightly from to the world is a mess, but I have the power to fix it.
The power is yours!
We were supposed to fix it. Unfortunately, by the time we got to the age where we could see society's real problems up close, we learned that the problems were big, the weapons with which we'd been equipped were not sufficient, and we drank. We self-isolated, we shut down, and felt like failures. We had not become a generation of nostalgia-worshipping hoarders. We had become a generation of impotent heroes. So why would that lead to future generations having it more together than we did? Well, the upshot of getting lied to for years for the sole purpose of getting exploited is that by the time you see the exploitation, you have zero loyalty to that system. So we're not actually terribly motivated to keep certain lies going. Like, suck it up, deal with it, you should be able to handle this alone. Failure is not an option. No time for losers, because we are the champions. I feel like a combination of better media, plus a generation of big brothers and sisters going, okay guys, here is a lengthy list of pooches we have screwed. Please do not screw these pooches. They've been screwed by experts, it never ends any way but badly. Combination of those two things coming together could do great things in our lifetime. Meantime, in case you're curious which books I personally think would do great things for generational transparency, we can do it mentality as opposed to I can do it mentality, and a host of other virtues. Allow me to recommend a couple of kick-ass books. Recommendation number 1, The Groucho Letters. The Groucho Letters are fun and not a particularly challenging read, but Groucho Marx the Man was kind of my gateway to understanding the profile and psychological mechanisms at work in the mind of a humorist. Because most people who become expert in jokes are not happy most of the time. Groucho is an old Jewish vaudevillian, and a depressive insomniac whose coping mechanism was humor. While humor has proven to be insufficient on its own for managing my personal depression, the instinct to get through my own crap times through jokes and help other people get through their crap times with jokes is still pretty strong in me. And great little books like these are reminders, at least for me, that comedy is not a cure-all, but it can be a relieve-all, at least in dose. Recommendation number 2, Good Omens. Rare is the work with Terry Pratchett's fingerprints on it that I am not sobbing by at the end, but this one is particularly good with themes and kind of dismantles the Chosen One narrative in a meaningful way without being mean. It's a sincerity that I find refreshing, and a banging reminder that destinies are all very well, but if the plan goes awry from page 1, the story your companions and you improvise might actually be way cooler. Recommendation number 3, Biting the Sun by Tanith Lee. This semi-distant future offering features gender fluidity and murder. Passive-aggressive robots sabotage your attempts to be happy, then want you to thank them for it. And despite the utopia that the robots supposedly maintain for the humans, the main character finds herself in voluntary exile and defiance of the unnatural order, which it turns out the robots really hate. And there's so much in it, I'm not sure I can actually condense it well, but it is a fantastic, creative story that inspires even we who are hip-deep in the river nihilism to think agave-nectared thoughts of a brighter future. Recommendation number 4, American on Purpose by Craig Ferguson. Craig Ferguson is one of my favorite humans on planet Earth because he is charming and foreign and speaks so candidly about being an addict and a recovering screw-up. Humanity needs that, especially from men. We don't need any more real men to talk about their problems, lone wolf bullshit. We need blueprints for how to recover from screw-ups, or alternatively guidelines for not screwing up in that exact way. And recommendations number 5, The Lord of the Rings. I know, it feels like a dumb, obvious, hackneyed book recommendation, hear me out. I first encountered Lord of the Rings at age 18 and it legit changed my life. Because that is a book/books in which the problems are big. Too big for a lone hobbit. It's not just the tiny fellowship taking on the problems of Middle-earth. It is army upon army doing to one another what opposing armies do, so the put upon every man can walk his beat and do what he's supposed to do. And that's amazing to me. Yes, the problems are mind-boggling. Yes, it feels like what you're doing is not important. But without you doing what you do, the armies upon armies upon armies do not matter for all of their fighting, and all of their might, and all of their mass. As always, thanks for giving these videos a shot. I don't know who this video was for. If it was you, thank you for doggedly holding your position on the planet, inhospitable as it might be. You were not alone, and I am assured by people who are smarter than me that whatever you're up to, it matters. Until we meet again, take it easy. Loves you. Bye.
Like my channel, buy my crap, doo-dah, doo-dah. There's no time to take a nap, oh the doo-dah day. Hey! Me and my friends are gem girls.